Before I get on to the subject matter at hand, I want to pay a tribute to my friend Hugh Southon, a massive West Ham fan, founder of Claret and Hugh, which obviously is a massive West Ham website. He passed away, sadly, on Saturday, and it was come as something. It was a shock, clearly, a right for Claret and Hugh, but he was a friend of mine, and I used to speak to him every single day, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, particularly if he was annoyed with David Moyes or Said Ben Rama not crossing the ball or something like that. He was ill for a very, very short period of time, actually. Spoke to him Thursday, spoke to him Friday, and he passed away on Saturday. And it's going to be a massive, massive loss and a bit of a shock and something that's going to take a while to get over. And I feel terribly sorry for his family, his daughter Katie, his grandchildren who are very, very upset, and everybody that used to speak to him on a daily basis because he was a talker. He really was. But no, more than a talker, he was a writer, and that's what he did for a living. He worked for every Fleet Street newspaper that you can think of, almost all of them, you know, be it the Express, the Guardian, the Mirror, the Sun, honestly, all of the newspapers he'd written for over the years. And Hugh was actually Bobby Moore's ghostwriter, and throughout Bobby's last few years, he was working alongside Hugh. When Moro used to attend a game, Hugh would be sat next to him and Hugh would transcribe his words, and that would be Bobby Moore's match report that you would read. They got to know each other very, very well, and I've lost count of the stories actually that Hugh told me about Bobby Moore, and in time I shall certainly recount some of those stories, but now's not the time. It's just very, very sad time, actually. And I just wanted to say now and sort of put on record that he was a good friend to me. There was a lot of controversy surrounding Claret and Hugh, particularly with him being associated that he was, sometimes a bored stooge. Look, he knew particularly David Gold very well, and he used to work for David Sullivan, because David Sullivan, of course, was a media man himself on the newspapers. One thing I say about Hugh is he never, ever told me not to write anything or to write something. He always said, you put your own opinions out there. And he always managed to do that. And I think he's been a very good friend to me as well. I'd suffered a lot of tough times, particularly during COVID. I had some really bad family troubles, and I lost my job as well. My business collapsed, and he was always there to support me. Not just morally as a friend. He would help me out financially. Even recently, when my dog passed away, Hugh was the first person on the phone saying, do you need some money? When Baggins passed away, do you need some money for the vet bills? This is obviously before he passed away. He was just a good guy and a very, very loyal friend to me, actually. And he's going to be very, very sadly missed. So, I just sort of wanted to say that, really. It's been a few days, been a couple of days now, and I wasn't entirely sure what to write about it, so I thought this was probably the best place to do it. So thank you for indulging me on that. I just wanted to put it out on record. I'm still, very, very shocked by it, and it's difficult. Anyway, but if there's one person that would understand that West Ham media life goes on, it would be Hugh. I'll tell you that now. I can hear him ringing in my ears, talking about the story that got me discussed, and he'd be, on the phone saying, "What about this financial fair play stuff?" Which he wasn't impressed with at all, by the way, and neither am I. And so I bring to you the most recent news from Kieran Maguire, who of course is the football financial expert who. Price of football, whenever anybody needs anything clarifying about financial fair play or football financial irregularities, they go to Kieran. Doesn't matter whether it's Sky Sports or TalkSport or anybody else. Kieran Maguire is the font of all knowledge. He is the authority on it. And he writes for a lot of websites, he does a lot of videos, he's got his own Twitter page, and he has said within the last couple of days that he thinks West Ham are going to be okay on financial fair play because of the board's caution, how cautious the board are. And funny enough, I can hear Hugh in the back of my mind saying to me, "There you go, see, look, they're looking after the finances of the club and all this sort of thing." And because of that, we should be all right. Now, I do wonder where we're going with all this in terms of. Look, West Ham have been cautious, but are we honestly saying that West Ham are okay? And I do believe Kieran Maguire in this, but are we honestly saying West Ham are okay in their finances because we've just sold a player for 100 million and we've pretty much stripped the squad down to its bare bones? I mean, we don't have a left winger really in well, in anything, well, not even in name. I was going to say we don't have a left winger in name. We don't have that at all. Having sold Syed Ben Rama, or he's on loan with a view to a permanent obligation to buy. Having got rid of Pablo Fornals, was he a left winger? No, he would operate on the left quite a lot. Got rid of Tilo Kehrer. Basically, we have absolutely stripped the squad down. So there's often you look at it and you think there's just not enough players on there. Is that what it takes to survive? You've got to sell your best players, and then not just sell your best players, sell your squad players as well. So we might be all right. Look, I'll do a bigger video in the future about more like FFP, but I cannot think this is sustainable. The irony is they talk about sustainability, profit and sustainability quotas. This can't be sustainable for the league. If everybody's being punished, if everybody is being penalised, and then everybody but the most cautious clubs are going to find themselves in trouble. I don't know whether this is going to put us in good or bad stead for next season. I really, really don't. But normally I look forward to the transfer window. And as you'll know, I will often say, we do sign players, we will sign players. I say it every summer. That's where this moustache came from that's never gone. It was a bet, which was West Ham will sign players. We do spend money in the summer, and we have done, and we can often spend more than 100 million. West Ham spend. I have to look now and think, well, this is highly unlikely to happen. And I think that's a massive shame. Now, it may well have the effect that it drives transfer prices down. And we've actually been linked with today Morgan Gibbs-White, who I spoke with the other day, but a double raid on Nottingham Forest. Morgan Gibbs-White and Awoniyi. Both good players, and actually think both would suit West Ham's style. But Nottingham Forest, of course, have been in trouble. They've just suffered a 4-point deduction. So they're the second team. Obviously, we have a situation where Everton have already been deducted points this season. They might be deducted more points this season. And then I think we've already have a situation where Leicester City, if they get promoted, will already start on a points deficit next season. This is a really, really, really bad look for the league. I have to say it. This sounds like, well, it sounds like it's got a feel of, cooking the golden goose. West Ham, and not just West Ham, the Premier League have a really, really good TV deal. And that TV deal is the envy of Europe. So much so, a lot of the Italian press were bleating on about it. Just over the weekend, there was this really interesting article on Football Italia, which was about, funny enough, it was about Angelo Ogbonna. And the journalist was saying there's no way that a mediocre English team, a middle-of-the-road English team, and, it's easy to take offence to that, but, up until that's what we were when we signed Angelo Ogbonna. Maybe a little bit more now because we've been in Europe for the past 3 seasons. But there's no way that a sort of mediocre English team should be able to go to Juventus, which is a stellar European club, obviously, and be able to take an Italian international. But that's what happened. And he actually made the point in there to say it's almost every team in the Premier League is richer than any team apart from the very, very biggest ones. Maybe in Spain or in Italy or whatever. And that's just the case, And the thing is, the reason that the Premier League clubs are so much richer than everybody else is because of the TV deal. But then the reason the TV deal is that good is because the football is more exciting and because the league, for a lot of the time, is not predictable. Now, I understand the league has been predictable over the last few years with Manchester City. But you've had teams like Leicester City winning, and just before that, it would sort of swap around a bit. It might not be, it's that close, it might not be Man City that win it this season, right? But it's a product. And if what you're going to do is every single season fine and get points deductions on a number of teams, the league is going to lose its integrity. It really is. And I just wonder what they're doing. They don't actually need to impose these restrictions. And I think the most odd thing about all of this is that the clubs themselves have voted for these sanctions. And I just wonder now if they're looking at it and regretting it. To get a vote passed in the Premier League, 14 out of the 20 clubs have to vote for it. And I don't know why we've decided to take on this situation where we're going to try and get down to 70% of money. Myself and Gio discussed it the other day in a lot more detail. We're going to try and get down to 70% going on wages and going on transfer fees. I think that's really, really weird. It's overly restrictive. That is not sustainability. That's driving a profit. Now, I know it says profit and sustainability, but football clubs don't need to make a profit. In many respects, you don't want a football club to make a profit because you don't want money to be going into the club's, well, I say club's coffers. Yes, do you want it to go into training grounds and all that sort of thing, the infrastructure? Yes. You don't want it going into the pockets of the people that own the clubs because they're just custodians, right? Excuse me. Ideally, what you want to happen is for the money, as long as a club is sustainable, as long as a club is not going out of business, that is absolutely fine. And now I'm very, very concerned that actually, I do believe that the West Ham owners over the years have been very, very cautious in their spending, but all this does is validate that. And I do think the more it's going to go on, it's going to be really hard to even look forward to transfer windows and stuff like that. I've got to say, this is sucking the fun out of a lot of the football. Not just in terms of the competitive edge, in terms of the playing, because we do know this is just going to ring fence the top six or whatever you want to call them. This is an ambition killer, as I said it the other day. But it's not just that. It's the spectacle of... It's just not a good look. You do not want to see these football clubs being dragged through the courts and contesting this, that and the other. It's an absolute mess. And I'm not advocating, by the way, a massive spend up that puts a club in peril. You can put rules in place that stop a club going bust without having to make the league uncompetitive. Because that's what's going to happen here. It really is. And just going back to Gibbs-White and just going back to Awoniyi, I actually would like both players at West Ham. I really, really would. However, I'm not so foolish as to think, well, hold on, what's happened to Nottingham Forest could happen to West Ham, and maybe we might find ourselves in that position. So the selfish part of me of West Ham thinks, oh yeah, I'd absolutely like those players. But the bigger picture, a club like Nottingham Forest, who are double European Cup winners, that a club that have got that much history just can't compete. Even though they're nowhere close to going bust, even though their owner has got loads of money, they can't be ambitious and they can't compete. There's something very, very wrong with the system. There's something very wrong with the situation here. And I think it needs sorting. And I think eventually it will get sorted. It will need that to happen. The top clubs are going to be loving this because they're just going to be able to spend because obviously their turnover is higher. And 70% of what they've got eventually is going to be much bigger than what we have. I think West Ham will be okay. But I'm not sure football will. And that's got to be a little bit of a concern, really. So, yeah, would I like these players? Absolutely I would. And I think they're both highly suited to West Ham. But look, maybe that's a different subject for another day. I just don't think it's a good look to see these clubs sort of having to sell off the family silver. And I was watching with interest the other day, actually, this stuff unfold with Leicester City. And it was really how a lot of the Championship clubs were responding. I say Championship clubs, the Championship clubs fans were responding to the news that Leicester City had got this punishment. And it was very much a case of, well, to hell with them. They broke the rules, they should be punished and all the rest of it. And yes, I understand that rules is rules and all the rest of it, but there was so much, and they have broken rules and they got history for breaking rules. But I think in everybody's hurry to sort of criticise Leicester and point out that they've broken the rules, I'm looking at particularly the Championship fans. They're complaining about the breaking of the rules without giving too much thought as to whether the rules are right. And actually, whilst they might be keen to see Leicester City punished, they may well find that those same set of rules are going to stop them from ever getting to the Premier League. The whole thing needs sorting out. I'm amazed. I'm amazed that this vote went the way it did. I can understand this vote if they took the vote and it actually all the top clubs voted for this set of measures. But I don't understand how they've got 14 clubs to vote for them. It feels like Turkey's voting for Christmas, actually. That's a really, really odd thing to do. But anyway, I mean, yeah, look, the headline, the strapline is that West Ham are going to be okay. And that's a good thing. And I think it's easy to say, oh, well, West Ham should be okay. Then that just praises, the management. But look what we've had to do to be okay. We've had to sell Declan Rice and we've had to sell off our squad players. This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable at all. I think that, by the way, I think football's gone money mad. One thing I hate about football is how money mad it's got. But this is not fixing that because the top lot will still be money mad. You'll just have even more disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And make no mistake about it, West Ham will definitely be the have-nots.